Welcome everybody to Power to the People. This game is basically like an electrical engineering kind of game where you take a look at cities and their electrical needs and kind of how to get power to these cities efficiently and making sure the power stays on, making sure that they don't have any electrical issues, especially when they expand their infrastructure to include higher energy buildings, higher energy commercial and industrial projects. And it's your job as the electrical, they call them architects, but they would really be electrical engineers, because architects design things for artistic factors, not necessarily not really designing or engineering the system to be most efficient. So they probably design we deal with architects sometimes, or at least architects in the sense where they say, okay, well, these lights don't comply with this law, these lights this system doesn't comply with current standards, that kind of stuff. But the electrical engineer is probably the one who actually figures out, well, you need to have electrical cables this size, this is how far apart the power poles need to be, or the in these cases your power lines or your power structures, where to place your substations to make them efficient, so that you don't have really long runs to get to your customer before you meet a transformer to split off to everybody else. We're also going to use this game kind of to talk about the idea of electric vehicles and how in states like California, we are going to start noticing that as more and more electrical vehicles come online, we're going to have more and more power issues as far as rolling blackouts and just power, whether it's blackouts, brownouts, issues. Why? Because the state of California is not manufacturing as much power as they consume. And if they want to get by I believe they have a goal by 2030 to get 5.5 million electrical vehicles on the road. And California simply doesn't have the infrastructure to make that happen. Just looking at kind of the electrical generation for the total system, it's moving in the negative direction. So in 2016, the state of California total system electric generation was 290,000 gigawatts per hour. The reality is that it's going in the opposite direction. Now you could say, okay, hey, maybe that is energy efficiency standards and whatnot in the state, but most of our, or at least a lot, has to do with our imports coming in. So we're importing a lot of electricity, but that demand is going to go up. And some of the reduction in the gigawatts per hour is going to be related to the fact that they're shutting down power plants. So, if they're shutting down nuclear power plants and stuff like that, we are going to see a drop. And you have seen. So in 2016, because they were shutting down nuclear power plants, we were at 18,000 gigawatts per hour, and now currently for nuclear we're only at 16,000. And if they continue to shut down power plants, we're going to continue to have issues as people try to put more electric vehicles on the road. It's simply because electric vehicles are really power hungry. They require a lot of electricity to get that range that people want. And it's only going to go up. So as they increase the range, they are going to have to increase battery capacity. That's just reality. You're seeing it with things like the GMC Hummer, or is it called the Humvee, whatever. That thing has a battery size that equates to about 2 Tesla Model S's. So it's got twice the battery capacity, and it's going to be a problem for our electrical grid. Our electrical grid is aging, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much it is going to impact, our infrastructure that we have, simply because if we're spending money on renewables and that kind of stuff, we're not going to be able to keep up with demand. It's very simple math. So I got kind of here we have kind of built this city to kind of duplicate, let's say, renewables. So here we have a hydroelectric dam, but as you can see, with a small town of only 41.1 megawatts and 20.7 megawatts, it's really stressing what this dam can produce. And I'm having to turn on these are little diesel generators, and if we want to run them, that's the only way we can kind of produce some electricity. Now you could drop in another hydroelectric dam, but the reality is you can't really do all that stuff. Hydroelectricity takes a lot of space. So the way hydroelectricity kind of works is they put a dam up, and this whole entire area, this game really isn't kind of true to the way it would have to work, is this whole area, huge area, would then become a lake. It would literally be underwater, this whole area. And it would be acting as the battery for this system. So as the lake rises to the height of the dam, that's kind of your battery for producing power. Now, it only really works if you have water. So in California, we've been having a drought for the last several years, right? And the lake levels are extremely low. So that's one of the problems that California is going to run into with its infrastructure, is that if we have droughts coming in, every 5, 6 years, and it maintains that for 5-6 years, well, your lake levels are going to be dropping. Just look at Hoover Dam and Lake Mead. I mean, you're not producing water, you're not getting water. Well, that's going to impact how much hydroelectricity you can make, because as the water level gets lower and lower, you have less pressure to be able to operate the dam, and those turbines need to spin at a certain speed to keep the electricity going at the level that they need. And it's just reality is it can't keep up with demand. So it's what this little city's infrastructure has also is solar. So we have solar here. We got a bunch of solar panels. This is more than enough to power the city, but the reality being that this will only work during the daytime when you have bluebird skies. So if you don't have bluebird skies, these panels in this solar system is only going to be working at about half of its ability. And I think that's what a lot of people need to realize, especially when people say, oh, renewable solar panels. Yes, but solar panels are only efficient if you have bluebird skies, and if you don't have what's considered like a static panel array. So what I mean when I say static panel array is that the the solar panels are in one fixed position, which means the sun comes up, rises in the east. They're only producing power in the middle of the day when the sun is the highest in the sky. It's because they can't move with they can't move their mounts to match how the sun is moving, so that it's constantly being in a good producing angle with relation to the sun. So we're gonna go ahead and unpause this and see if we can't duplicate some of the issues that states like California have been having with their electrical system, because we are heavily invested in the idea that renewables are going to be the future, but those systems really only truly work when you have some kind of battery array that makes it kind of keeps up with it. But they're designing these systems with the current model and not taking into account the number of drivers that California would like to put on the road with electric vehicles, which I believe the goal by 2030 is 5.5 million, which is a little under half of the vehicles that are currently on the road. I think California has about 14.2 million registered vehicles on the road, and so they want to kind of replace about half. It ends up being, I think, 40%, but they want to replace 40% of the vehicles on the road with electric vehicles. And California is going to have a huge hurdle to climb with trying to create an infrastructure that is energy dense and will be able to keep up with the demands of charging these huge power hungry electric vehicles that really don't get a whole lot of range. And the problem is, I see a lot of evangelization of these electric vehicles, but when you go talk to these customers, then they don't realize how much energy is required. They see they see in the commercials, or they talk to other people and say, oh, well, just go solar. Well, yeah, but I don't think you realize how much solar is actually needed to charge up an electric vehicle. I mean, I'm kind of uniquely qualified to talk about this. And here we go. So it's, as you can see, it's rainy, it's cloudy, it's during the day. But what you can see is that the solar system that has a max theoretical output of 75 megawatts, it's only producing 40, right? So that's kind of close to real life when you're thinking of things. Now, I've over-engineered this. This is way more than this city needs. But think about in real life, if this were to happen, if you put these solar panels, which, the plan is, hey, we want to put solar panels on as many houses as we can to kind of offset the grid. Well, yeah, but a lot of people live in areas where that doesn't make any sense, simply because it's cloudy and it's overcast a lot. So unless they change the solar technology where you're going to be able to have super efficient panels, it's really not going to work out, because you are losing, and the reality too is when people buy, they buy a photovoltaic system and an electrical system, they say, oh, well, I bought a 5,000 watt solar panel system, and I put it, the installer put it on my house. But I'm not getting anything close to 5,000. Well, yeah, that's because there's a lot of environmental factors that will limit how much solar panel power is actually being produced, and that's just reality. You can lose as much as 20 to 30% of what your solar panel can do just to environmental factors alone. Solar panels tend to do really, really well in cold environments where you have bluebird skies, you have, zero cloud cover, and the array is pointed correctly. And the reality being that most people that put solar on their house, they're using static arrays, so they don't move. They're fixed into one position, which means that the maximum power output of your panel array is happening in like a 3-hour window. Say for instance, the sun is the highest in the sky at around 1 o'clock. Well, that's the time when you're going to be producing the most amount of power. But the power offset is really not enough to cover the electric vehicle. So somebody could say, well, I want to add solar to be able to offset my EV, my electric vehicle. Well, the solar array to charge up off grid, so not using any power from your power provider, right, would be huge. If we use kind of 340 watt panels as kind of like the standard, which is standard for most people's homes currently in 2022. It might be different from when you're watching this, so kind of take that with a grain of salt, because they are moving up as far as the ampacity of the photovoltaic panels. But currently, if you wanted to charge your vehicle using your solar panel array, you would need somewhere around 120 panels just to charge up one Tesla or one Ford Lightning. 120 panels. I don't know about you, but not only is that cost astronomical as far as the cost for your photovoltaic or your solar panel array, but most people don't have that space. I mean, most people can fit on their roof because you have limitations of how much space can be taken up on your roof due to the panels. So there you go. So we're at nighttime. The hydroelectric has exceeded, but we're having a blackout in certain areas. Why? Because we've relied on renewables without having an adequate battery system or adequate backup. And the thing about it is what this game kind of got right is the idea of ramp up time. So, you could have power plants as a backup, but they are going to take time and they're going to require people to maintain the facilities. But they're not going to just be able to flip a switch and all of a sudden they're producing power again. Not especially if you say, hey, you know what? We're going to use this power plant as kind of our backup power generation. Well, it could take days to get that power up and running and online. And like I was saying earlier, I'm kind of uniquely suited to kind of talk about this simply because full transparency, I live in the state of California. I see the infrastructure. I work as an electrician in this state, and I see that there's a lot of misunderstanding about how good our infrastructure is to be able to handle this new, I would say, technology of electric vehicles. I was kind of doing some quick math, looking at how much power generation it would require to get 5.5 million vehicles on the road. And during this calculation, I was trying to be kind of conservative in my numbers. And I was accounting for, I kind of took the average. I said, okay, well, what's the average battery size for a Tesla Model S, a Ford Lightning, a Cybertruck, the GMC, the GMC Humvee, or whatever that thing is called. And I took the average and I said, okay, well, what if these people only charge their electrical vehicles every other day? We know that that's not reality. There's a lot of people who use their vehicles for work that might need to charge up their vehicle every day. But just those calculations, very simple. I took the average, and I think the average ended up being somewhere around 126 kilowatt hours per person, and that's only one vehicle driving on the road, per basically per household. So like, we're talking about 5.5 million each one in a household, because that's kind of what the infrastructure can handle without having to upgrade your electrical panels and spending a huge amount of money, paying an electrician a lot of money to upgrade your electrical panel, and dealing with the headache and hassle of that. To do that, to put 5.5 million electrical vehicles on the road, we would need to basically double. So our current total in-state generation is 190,000 gigawatts. Well, you would need to double the size. So take every power source we have, current power generation source we have in California, and double it. That's what it would take to get 5.5 million vehicles on the road. But you would have to tell the customers they can only charge their electric vehicle once every other day. So they could only charge their vehicle every other day. Here you go. This is just, again, the idea that, look, we have rolling blackouts. Why? Because our hydroelectric is stressed and our solar panels are not making any power. I have battery backup, which is this facility, but it is running out very quickly because it can't keep up with demand. And that's been kind of the solution that most people have kind of come up with. Well, we'll just add batteries to the system and we'll make it efficient. Well, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I understand that is a good strategy, but realize that most energy manufacturers, they don't have electric vehicles in mind. These companies are spending 3-4 years building these gigawatt facilities. I mean, when I did the calculation, 1 gigawatt, which is 1,000 kilowatts, is really only enough to power 7 electric vehicles. It works out to be 7.8 electric vehicles for 1 gigawatt, which means that in places like Monterey Bay, where they have Moss Landing, there's a 400 megawatt lithium ion battery facility, and they tout this as, well, we have enough ampacity to power 300,000 homes, right? 300,000 homes for 4 hours. Yeah, that makes sense, but they're not thinking about electric vehicle users, because when you look at it, 400 megawatts is really only enough to charge 3,120 EVs. And that's if you're telling people they can only charge every other day. And they're spending probably millions of dollars building these facilities. And I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the demand. And the thing about it is building power infrastructure doesn't happen overnight. I'm okay with the idea that, hey, you know what? It's cleaner for the environment. I get it. Nobody wants to live in a dirty, nobody wants to live in a place that has dirty air. I get it. I totally understand. But honestly, I just don't think electric vehicles are the answer. I think that as we move forward, we're going to find that they're going to start moving away from electric vehicles simply because the investment in the infrastructure would be more than most companies want to invest. Think about your power provider. They're the ones who have to provide this to you. And guess what? If it costs more for them to produce, they're going to in turn charge you more. It's basic supply side economics at that point. When demand rises, so does price. And you will see that as time goes on, these systems and your cost per kilowatt hour will go up. I have no doubt in my mind that that's going to happen. Your cost per kilowatt hour is going to go up, and you're going to be paying, well over what you are now. I mean, in California, if you're up in the higher tier, your high use, which as you start charging electric vehicles, that will put you in to the high use tiers. Because you're using and you're consuming so much electricity, you could be paying as much as 50 cents a kilowatt hour. Yeah, it's probably cheaper than gas. But I think it's time that we all come to the realization that electric vehicles are not going to be the future, and plug-in hybrids are probably going to be the way forward. And that we will have to use plug-in hybrids. But I get it that gas is dirty, but what about hydrogen? I don't hear a lot of people talking about hydrogen. The thing about hydrogen is clean burning. It is energy dense to create, but you could create the hydrogen and store it in tanks. You could use renewables like solar to generate hydrogen during the daytime when they're using their when they're at their optimum power output, store it away, and then people can use it. And it you won't have to wait around for your vehicle to charge up, because you would be able to fill it up in infrastructure similar to the way you fill up gas tanks. And I know people say, oh, well, hydrogen's dangerous. Those tanks could explode. Yeah, well, propane is also dangerous, but we make it work, right? Nuclear waste is dangerous, but we also find a way to store it safely. Gasoline is dangerous, but we find a way to store it safely. So, I don't want to hear this argument from people that, oh, the tank, the hydrogen's dangerous. I mean, you can make hydrogen with pure water. The most abundant, fluid on this planet, most abundant material on this planet is water, and you can produce hydrogen with it. You can burn it, and it's clean. You don't have to worry about the problems associated with all these additives that they put in the gas and to make it burn better and burn cleaner, but it has bad side effects. We don't have to go down that road, but again, we have to start talking about these things and coming up with a solution now rather than later, because you're gonna find out that they're gonna probably keep pushing the goal back. Why? Because they haven't been able to meet their goals. I think their goal as of 2021 was to have 250,000 electric vehicle charging stations. And I'm talking about California, just because I live here. I see kind of the infrastructure being built and how long it's taking because of my, the job that I'm in. And, they're behind. So, you know, the goal was 250,000 by I think 2021. Well, they've only built 73,000 so far, and that's well below what you're going to need if you really say, you know what, I don't care. We want zero emissions out of the tailpipe. We don't even want a tailpipe. We want everything to run on electricity. We don't even want to, you know, worry about that. Well, I get it, but start building the infrastructure now, because a power plant could take 5 years to build if you're being aggressive about it, right? So you need to start building that infrastructure now, and not waiting, because, you know, bad things are going to start happening. You know, I mean, as an electrician, I mean, I'm fine. I know what, you know, I know what I need to do at my home to be able to. Here we go. We're pulling a lot of electricity, especially because it's, you know, these people at nighttime right here want their juice. There we go. Did that help at all? Kind of added some lines here. Hopefully help alleviate some of the congestion. So here we go. We've ran out of power. The whole city's having a blackout. Why? Because our hydroelectric can't keep up. It's nighttime. We got no solar. Let's see what happens. I mean, obviously, if we drop a power plant, right? Now, in this game, the wind turbines don't make any sense to me. We could drop them here. Let's see what happens, because I think these wind turbines, the ideal wind speed is over 8 miles per second, or 8 meters per second, or 18 miles per hour. We're going 6.1. So what happens if we drop one of these things? And we'll drop it. Oh, we can't. We can only drop them in certain spots. Elevated area. Let's see. So I'm trying to find an elevated area where this is going to work. And I think I looked at this earlier. There is no option. So we're in a flat area. Imagine this is, you know, the Central Valley of California, or, you know, middle of the road, or middle of the country, you know, United States, where, you know, but I would think, like, in flat areas, it really shouldn't matter. We went to Wyoming last year, and, you know, they had kind of rolling hill areas, but they still were able to produce power with wind, because, you know, you get those trade winds, or you get those really the spots where the hot air and cold air mix, you know, coming down from the north and then up from the south, and you know, it really provides, you know, they were providing plenty of electricity just because of the fact that it was windy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop this power plant right here. Boom. So this is a gas-fired plant. And here we go. We got the ramping up. And so it's just, you know, again, just keep in mind that I am not against electric vehicles. I'm against poor planning for electric vehicles, and I'm also against the evangelization of that stuff. Simply because I know the electrical needs. I was talking to a customer the other day, and you know, they said, "Hey, you know, I want to kind of plan for the future. I want to do 2 electric vehicles." And I kind of looked at the customer's panel, and, you know, you could do this at home. You know, open your electrical panel and see what size your main breaker is. It should say service disconnect. See what size it is. I would probably guess that if your home was built before 1990, most likely the main service coming into your home is probably only 100 amps. And that's only enough to support one electric vehicle, you know. And if you have a home where you know, people are, you have, you know, drivers that are, you know, 16 or older, and they're starting to get out on the road, well, guess what? You're going to have to upgrade your electrical panel. But you can only go so much. So, overhead fed, which means like the wires are coming from over the roof or over your backyard or front yard, as whatever it may be. That's when we talk about overhead fed. That means the wires are coming from above the panel and down, down through the home. The max you can do in California is 200 amps. Well, the electric vehicle demand for 4 drivers already meets that. So your whole entire 200 amp panel will be dedicated to just charging your electric vehicles if you have 4 EV drivers in the family. That's a lot. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of electricity for 4 people. And it's just not feasible to go down that route. But again, if you have 100 amps, so if you have a 100 amp panel, you can probably only safely do 1 electric vehicle. So that means that in the future, if you don't upgrade your electrical panel, you're not going to be able to safely charge your electric vehicle at home. And that's one of the arguments I saw, is people saying, oh, well, a good majority of electric vehicle charging is happening at home. Yes, it is right now. But as you increase the number of people that are going to be on the road and the number of electric vehicles in a household, you're going to find out very quickly that your electrical system at your house cannot handle it. Plus, if you have an electric water heater, or you have an electric stove, electric dryer, all of those things add to the total load on your electrical panel. And the reality is it's no wonder why certain people's houses are catching fire, because these systems were not designed with electric vehicles in mind. And that goes back to the point of Moss Landing, their gigawatt battery facility. Well, yeah, 300,000 homes or only 3,000 electric vehicles. You choose. And the thing about electricity is electricity doesn't care. It's going to go to, whoever their, whatever load is closest to it. It's going to start, pulling it, pulling to that load. So if you have a bunch of customers, right? Like, say for instance, all of these customers, they're the shortest distance to the power, to the gigawatt facility or whatever. They're the shortest distance. They're going to get all of their power, and they're going to use up all of the power before it can get to these people that are farther away. So if they're using up the full capacity of this gigawatt facility, then they're going to be pulling it first, and they're going to be charging up all of their vehicles first, and then these people are going to be like, hey, how come I don't have any power? Well, it's because these people are sucking it all away. And you're going to see issues with amperage, and you're going to see things like brownouts and blackouts, and the reality being that brownouts and blackouts are not good for electrical circuits. It's going to end up causing more problems than it's worth. And we really need to come up and talk to our politicians and talk to the people that are designing these systems to kind of bring some sense to them. And it doesn't help when everybody's holding up these electric vehicles as like the next greatest thing, because honestly, they really aren't. They're going to be a burden on the electrical system. That's just the reality is they're not going to be able to produce as much electricity as they want. And I like the idea of zero emission vehicles, but the reality is that we need to plan it out better. And we need to come to the idea and realize that one of the ways that we can kind of solve this problem. I mean, here's my thought. Okay, just go with me on here. I'm just thinking about the idea that how could we solve this problem with needing more electricity to homes to be able to charge their vehicles and make that kind of work. Well, we can use the way that we're already kind of doing things, and that would be to increase the voltage going to the residentials. So currently in the United States, most residential homes run at 240 volts. So you have two hot wires and a neutral coming into your house. Each one of those hot wires is 120 volts. When it gets to the panel, you have the capability to produce 240 volt circuits. Well, we have another voltage in industrial and commercial applications, and that's you see it more in industrial than commercial, but you have 480 volts. Now, 480 volts would be enough to power most electric vehicle charging and do it rapidly. So like when you go to see those Tesla or supercharger stations, they're running at 480 volts. That's why they're able to get you that increased decrease in charging time. It's because it's a higher voltage and they can push more energy into your battery. The only thing is that doing that in a residential setting can be very dangerous. So that much voltage, if you touch that panel or you touch those hots, you're gonna have a really bad day. As you start increasing the voltages going into a home, the more dangerous they become. But that is a danger that we might just have to live with. I mean, I don't see us getting away with running the current voltages in our home and saying, okay, well, that's what we want to do. We're going to stick with this, because watts is a mathematical equation, right? Voltage times amperage equals wattage. If I have a 3,000 watt circuit, right? And I'm trying to, or a 3,000 watt device, let's say it's a maybe like a water heater or something like that, and I have a 3,000 watt water heater, and I'm trying to use 240 volts to kind of operate it, or to kind of power it. So doing some simple math, if we take that 3,000 watts and we divide it by 240, that gives us the amperage of 12.5, right? So that you need a system that is at least 12.5 amps or larger to be able to power the needs of that water heater. So when you design the wire size and everything, you have to design the wire size for that 12.5 amp circuit, which ends up being, I think the minimum would be, because the water heater, we derate the circuit, but I don't want to get in that. For simple math, we would say, okay, that would be a size 14 gauge wire, because a 14 gauge can handle up to 15 amps in a residential setting. Now, if we took that same circuit, that same 3,000 watt water heater, and we divided that by 480, that comes out to 6.25 amps. It basically cut the amperage needs in half, which means that we could downsize the wire, because we are not going to have issues of overheating, and the system is going to be able to run better on that low on that smaller size wire. So it's because you have more electrical pressure being pushed into the circuit. Let's see. Okay, let's see how our power plant is doing. Well, it looks like we just installed a new power plant. It's a 100 megawatt power plant. This person is obviously happy, but higher power usage due to warmer weather. Let's go ahead and look at our power map here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take some of these buildings and we're going to go underground with them. Oh no. Oh, these ones are heating up big time. So like these buildings right here, the way that this game kind of deals with those is they will tell you, hey, you need to go underground. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll have to try and get through this day, and hopefully these people will stop using so much electricity. They need to stop charging their Teslas so that our power grid doesn't explode, because that's kind of where we're going to. And those are really the challenges, especially, you know, if we look at like, okay, a hospital, and you say, okay, well, how many charging ports are you going to have to put in the hospital in order to support 5.5 million people on the road? Well, you're going to have to provide a lot. The parking lot will be full of chargers if you don't want people standing in line. So again, you know, installing those supercharging systems at a higher voltage is probably going to be the way to kind of move forward with that. If they, you know, that's what we're deciding. We're deciding we're going with electric vehicles and we're sticking with it. You know, that's where you're going to have to go to. Let's see if we can't use some of these points to maybe help. So here we go. Yes, we're going to tell these people, we're going to give them incentives for solar panels. What are we going to do? Also, we're going to train some linesmen so we can get the repairs done better, right? We'll make more efficient storage, and we'll go efficient appliances. I mean, this is basically everything that California is doing, right? Like, this is California in a nutshell. They're telling people, we're going to give you tax incentives, the federal government too, tax incentives on solar panels. We want you to have high efficiency appliances. We want you to have high efficiency, also lights. And then we want to make sure that you're not wasting any electricity, so you're using occupancy sensors. I could see a time where the state of California mandates all new single-family homes have occupancy sensors in most of the rooms, like bedrooms and whatnot. Mark my words, that's probably coming down the pipeline in the future. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna alleviate some of the congestion here. We know that these buildings are high violators, so we're gonna see if we can't go underground to take care of some of this stuff. Let's see. Go underground. You know what? I take that back. Let's. Okay. The Taj Mahal wasn't a high violator. I thought there was another one in here. Oh yeah, over here. Okay. So let's put in some underground stuff. Now, the crazy thing about underground circuits, right, is that you really have to be careful with wire size. With these cables running open air, you can get away with running smaller wires. Why? Because they're open air. The heat buildup will just kind of radiate out into the open air. But when you go underground, you will have an issue. Hey. You'll have an issue with heat buildup. So what we're going to do is we're going to go underground with some of these heavier loads. They allow us to, let's see, if we take this, we could put this underground. And then we can go ahead and connect to these guys. So that's kind of the way they deal with it. They say, hey, you know what, let's go underground. But underground isn't always going to be the solution for everything, simply because you get a lot of heat buildup. You're going to get a lot of heat buildup if the system isn't designed right. And then imagine having to upgrade the system. You know, imagine, which is actually what's happening, is that a lot of counties and a lot of cities have decided, you know what, I don't like the way power lines look. So then what do? They went ahead and they said, okay, well, we're going to, we're going to put all of our feeds underground. It looks great. There's no power lines there. But guess what? A lot of homes that want to upgrade to EVs are going to have a hard time. Why? Because they're going to have to trench up the ground at a depth of 3 feet just to run new lines. And some of those underground feeds, they run through people's backyards, your neighbors' backyards, or they run through your neighbors' garages, or they run underneath the street. And guess what? Your power provider is going to tell you, well, we don't cover that. We only cover the underground up to our distribution spot. The rest of it, you're going to have to cover. So when it comes time to get permits, guess what? You're going to have your neighbor's permission if the underground feed goes through their backyard. And it's going to be astronomically expensive. Way more expensive than just buying gas, right? Same with solar too. It's the same problem. You know, if you want to try and install a system that an off-grid system to charge your EV vehicle, well, get ready to spend $100,000 at least, and that's without having the issue of space, right? So, you know, like, we need to come to the realization that some of these things are just, you know, they're not good solutions, and we're going to need to find ways to make things better. And that's why I really say that, like, in my opinion at least, increasing the voltage is gonna have to happen, right? Because you can run basically higher, if you have a 480 volt circuit going into most people's homes, you're not going to have to upgrade, because you can use the existing wires that are there, and then you would just have a separate panel. So you'd have a separate electrical panel that is running the 480 volt stuff, or, you know, like, especially your EV charging. So like, you'd have a 480 volt EV charging panel, and that would kind of help basically electric vehicle charging. And then you could do kind of have at least multiple drivers. But even though it's even at 480, you're still going to have that challenge, because you still need to power up the rest of the house. And that's too, when I talk about California and its charging, we would have to basically double the system. But that's if we're not expanding. That's no new construction. That is, everything stays the same. California is not growing. We're not bringing in new industries. That is what would have to happen. And I think we're not ready for that. And it's obvious when you see that we're actually producing less energy as time goes on in the state, because we're shutting things down. All right, so our dam is going down for maintenance in 33 hours. We're going to go ahead and ramp up our backup generation here, because that's really our only option. And All right, so let's see. Okay, so the dam has to go down. Hopefully we have enough capacity to power this. Let me take care of these people real quick here. Okay, so they're happy now. Who else is unhappy? These people are unhappy. Sounds about right. There you go. Take this opportunity. Shoot. Man, oh man, oh man. Okay, we could probably underground feed them. Let's see, it's gonna be a medical, and let's see, we got 7. So I think right away we're gonna put in a underground feed for them. Let's go underground, and then we'll go. Oh, it's gonna take a lot of our money. Boom, and then we'll connect those two. Not enough funds. Dang it. How much funds do we get? Alright, well, let's take a loan. Might as well take the most amount, right? Ain't nothing wrong. We'll do the California model. Just go into debt. All right, so he's got power now. He's got an underground feed. The reason why we did that is because it's going to be a medical clinic. Medical clinics in this game are heavy abusers of electricity because of all the technology they have and the fact that they got to keep people alive. But going back to the idea too that the reality being that most people and people have caught wind of this. This is why they're doing it. Is you're gonna have to have your own so people are going to have to start worrying about their own backup power, and that's just the reality. Is as our infrastructure ages and they're not building more, they're focusing on renewables, is that people are going to have backup generators. If we're not increasing the voltage to everybody, if we're not building new power plants, we're just going to say, we're focusing on renewables, that's all we're going to do. You're going to have your own backup generator. That's just going to be reality. And if everybody has electric vehicles, guess what? The backup generator you're going to have is going to have to be pretty good size to be able to power that. And again, I don't like being a negative about it, but when look at it from my point of view, when you go to people's homes and we talk about the need. What things they need, people are surprised. People are surprised to know that, oh yeah, I got a 100 amp panel. I should have enough, right? No, you don't. You don't. You have enough to power one electric vehicle, and that's going to be pushing it if you have a electric stove and an electric dryer. Why? Because most electric stoves take 40 amps, something like that. Maybe even more, 50 amps. So it's just, we have to come to the table and we have to come to the table and realize that that the demands for electricity can be pretty significant. in the future, what are you doing to make, to correct the situation? If you're sitting there saying, oh, well, I'm just going to buy my electric vehicle, but not realize that, like, we don't have the infrastructure, that's not good. That's bad in my opinion. You shouldn't be impulse buying electric vehicles. You need to do the research and see whether in the future this is actually going to be something that, can be done. So it's time that people are honest, especially when they're shopping for a vehicle, and honest about the idea that electricity is not going to be this cheap forever. States like California already have the highest cost per kilowatt hour of any state, okay? And that's only going to go up higher when the electrical providers and electrical companies have to increase their infrastructure, right? People need to get out of their heads that, I don't have to pay for gas. I go to the charging station and my electrical vehicle charging is free. No, it's not. You have to pay for electricity just like everybody else, unless you're stealing it, which would be illegal. You're not getting free electricity. You're just not. You know how I know? I mine cryptocurrency and they don't give it to me for free, so I'm assuming you don't get yours for free either. And it's time that people realize is, well, how much per kilowatt hour are you willing to pay to to keep your electric vehicle? If the cost per kilowatt hour goes up to $1 per kilowatt hour, that means every time you fill up your Ford Lightning, you're going to be paying $100. Is that something you're interested in? Because that's way more expensive than gasoline, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? I'm just the electrician that has to install the system for everybody so that they can have their electric vehicle charging station in their homes, right? And it creates a problem too because of the amount of time that it takes to charge up an electric vehicle. And this is one of the things that when I was looking at videos and kind of doing some research for this video, kind of looking at the idea that people aren't really being honest with how much it truly costs to charge an electric vehicle. People aren't accounting for the time and the cost for their time in sitting there waiting for an electric vehicle charging. Take however much money you get paid per hour and calculate that into the time you're sitting there waiting for your electric vehicle to charge. If you make $40 an hour and it takes you an hour to charge your electric vehicle at a charging station, well, that should be tacked on to the cost of charging your electric vehicle. Not just the electric cost that you have to pay at the charging station, but actually your cost in time. Because I don't know about you, but my free time is worth a lot of money, and companies like Ford, Tesla, and GMC are not paying you to charge your vehicle at the station, right? You have to sacrifice your own time to do that. And is it worth it? Especially as lines at these charging stations are getting longer and longer. And then Tesla is saying, oh, well, yeah, we're going to open up these charging stations to all manufacturers here coming up pretty soon. So guess what? Get ready to stand in line. So I just want to thank everybody for watching. And, we're going to kind of have more of these conversations. And we're going to be building more of these little cities and kind of playing with the idea of, kind of what is it going to take to make what kind of solutions are we going to have to look at to solve this zero emission electric vehicle law that it seems like most states are trying to adopt, right? That's definitely the direction they're trying to go. And I don't think we are even close to being ready. And people will say, oh, well, that's 12 years down the road, 2035. That's plenty of time to get things working and get things going. Yes, it is, but we have to start now. And guess what? You, as the taxpayer, you, as the electric vehicle driver, are going to have to pay for it. That is the reality. And I know I don't want to pay for it. I'm not the one sitting here saying, oh, well, I need to have this electric vehicle and I need charging stations and I need this and that. No. I'm totally okay with gas. I'm totally okay with hydrogen. I'm totally okay with some of that stuff, because as time goes on, it's getting cleaner and cleaner, right? Smog used to be a really, really bad issue, back in the 80s. But look at it now. We're moving in the right direction. But I don't believe electric vehicles are the way to go in the future. They're just not. It's gonna be very expensive. I mean, look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's already complaining about Proposition 30, right? That special tax is going to have to be collected on electric vehicles to pay for infrastructure upgrade. Well, I'm sorry, but that is the reality. That's gonna be the reality for the future. If you think that the taxpayers are just gonna be like, oh yeah, no, I don't mind paying all that extra to have vehicle charging stations. The tax should be incurred on people that drive electric vehicles. You want to use it? I have no problem if you want to, but pay for the infrastructure. Pay for the infrastructure that makes that happen, and I'll be totally fine. You get no questions from me. You want to pay for it? Hey, cool. Have at it. But don't expect me to sit there and pay for it. It's just, that's not something I'm interested in. Well, as you can see, everything's moving to chaos, so we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you like this content. Leave some comments. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hate in the comments about, oh, you don't understand EVs, or this, that, and the other. That's fine, but I see it every day. I'm an electrician in this state. I see the unique requirements. I'm the foot soldier on this battle to get you your electrical vehicle charging, and I can tell you we're not there yet, and it's going to be a extremely large amount of money to get us there. See you next time.